Good morning. Thank you all for joining. I'm Alec Walker, EVP of Financial Planning, Crestmont Private Wealth here in our Houston office. We've got our CEO and CIO, Sam McGee, joining us from our lovely Hill Country office in Bernie. Just to let everybody know, today's meeting will be recorded for our records. If you have questions, there is a Q&A function. Our goal today is we're going to try to keep this to 30 minutes, be conscious of everybody's time. If we have time for a few questions at the end, we will go through those and answer them. If not, please feel free to follow up with us after the meeting. The purpose of today's webinar is, really with what's going on in the energy industry as a whole, specifically more catered to those folks that work at ConocoPhillips, but also some more broad, just retirement and general principles as well. No matter what industry you're working in as you consider that next step. So we're going to be going over what's happening with the severance payouts, the potential layoffs in the energy industry, and then kind of the second half of the presentation, some key retirement principles and where we fit in, Crestmont Private Wealth as a wealth manager, as a financial advisor. So again, here's that overview. We're going to talk a little bit about who we are. If you're not familiar with Crestmont Private Wealth, if you're a client, you know us pretty well. We're going to talk about what severance looks like over the first 90 days, kind of some key things about that ConocoPhillips severance plan, what to be thinking of, what to be aware of, and then kind of expanding out a little bit further. What does retirement look like over the next kind of 24 months and really even beyond that? And then talk about retirement readiness, a full picture that includes, both financial and personal and the mental readiness aspect of that. And at the very, very, very end, we'll go over kind of a brief financial planning demo that kind of highlights how we work with our clients to navigate the multitude of decisions and planning that comes with your financial lifestyle. So Sam, I thought you could maybe kick it off with talking a little bit about Crestmont Private Wealth and who we are.
Sure. Thank you, Alec. So I see we've got quite a few people still kind of rolling in here. And so if you missed the very beginning, we do have a Q&A. So the ribbon across the top of your screen, if you're on the Teams app, there should be a little Q&A there. So feel free to ask questions. They're moderated. Your privacy is assured. So go ahead and just submit your questions and we'll get to them as we can. So first off, who is Crestmont? It really is a company that caters to families through life's moments, which is right down here below. And everything we do is tied to our core values. I'm not going to get into each detail, but just to share a little bit about, what this means to us. Everywhere we go, we try to really embody these 5 precepts. And in the wealth management business, trust is really number one. As a fiduciary, you got to give sound advice and help people through those life moments, and trust is a key ingredient. Alec, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So little shameless plug on my youth. So that's me down on the bottom right in a British school uniform, pre-K. So I am admittedly a expat Conoco kid. Grew up with it for 37 years. I've seen my dad and his career doing that. And so as a kid, I grew up around this. Did several moves. I think 16 in total, 3 different continents. Singapore, UK, remember lots of projects in Venezuela and Iraq. And so from a personal perspective, this is very passionate and with purpose for me to be able to help those that are in the energy industry, because we know what you go through, whether it's a move or a layoff or the ups and downs, we understand it. And now we're going to talk a little bit more about the professional benefit side of things today and how severance and layoffs can look from a technical perspective. And so a little bit of background there. In 2014 and 2015, we had a very similar set of circumstances. And many of you were in the energy industry when that was happening. Maybe you weren't as close to retirement. Maybe you were just starting out. That was a very trying time for those in Houston and abroad. Quite a few layoffs, but with the announcement yesterday of up to 25% of the workforce at ConocoPhillips, this is a pretty big deal. So some of you may be doing an EOI, some of you may not want to be laid off, and so we want this to be useful to you to have things to consider as you go through that. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide.
Yeah, and just real quick on that, Sam, my background as well, I started working with our clients, with our firm, with Sam, in 2014, as an intern. And so I kind of started my career helping people navigate at retirement, and have been working with those same clients throughout now a decade plus in retirement. I mean, I can just think within the last couple of weeks, reaching out to clients that retired around that time frame to have discussions about annual Roth conversions, that we've been doing for maybe the last 8, 9, 10 years. The planning around that, it starts before retirement. There's a lot that happens right now that we're going to go over, but it continues on as situations change, as folks' lives change as well. So kind of getting into the details of what we're talking about today related to the severance benefits, we're kind of breaking it up again into two different time frames, kind of looking at that first 90 days. What do employees need to be thinking about? To Sam's point, whether you're raising your hand with the EOI, close to retirement, you're ready to go ahead and make that leap, or hey, you're not yet ready. You may be still some years away, but still need to be planning around, well, what happens? What are my options there? So just kind of high level, the eligibility for the severance plan is salary grade level 22 and below. If you have at least 1 year of service, you're going to get that basic benefit, 4 weeks. 2 or more years, which I imagine is most folks, or they're going to have that supplemental benefit, which is up to 60 weeks of pay, plus an additional PTO payout. And so from, our communications with clients, one thing that they actually shared, one person shared with me recently, was the new HR system, Workday. If you log into that, there may actually be some little kind of workflows or tasks assigned to you that can give you a little bit of a detailed overview of your options as well. So please keep that, take a look at that if you have some time. There could be some benefits there. So the timing of this is kind of the critical piece. From what we've heard, what our knowledge base says is, if you're notified in early November that you are going to be subject to the layoffs, there's going to be a period of time, about 21 days before you're actually terminated. You may be considered that you're still working during that 21-day period, or kind of hey, you're off. You will officially receive that termination packet about 3 weeks later from the notification of your layoff. The timing there, that's when it's really critical. Once your termination is official and you receive that packet, you have 60 days to return that general release of liability after the layoff. And so the way that we'll kind of model this on the next page, the way that could work out, and kind of a positive, kind of half glass full, is that severance payout, instead of occurring in 2025, which, Sam, I believe that's kind of how it happened in 2015. I think the advancements that Conoco's made with their HR system getting a little bit more formalized, that payment could potentially come in 2026 if you wait on turning in that paperwork. So we'll touch on that. We'll touch on that as well. The health benefits, that's going to be a really key thing, whether you are at retirement age or you're not yet there and you're going to be kind of transitioning into someone else. So your health benefits will carry through to the end of November. So very critical, you and your family would be covered through the end of your last month of work. And then you've kind of got two options. If you're at retirement age, which is 55, and you have at least 10 years of service, you would then be eligible for retiree medical coverage pre-65. So that's that pre-Medicare coverage. You have 30 days from the end of your health benefits to enroll. So that would be, health benefits in November. You've got 30 days from the end of November to enroll in retiree medical. Now, you actually may want to make that decision sooner so you don't have a gap to where you're uninsured for, 15 to 30 days. If you're not eligible for retiree medical, then you would be eligible to enroll in COBRA. COBRA is obviously going to be a bit more expensive, but you have 60 days to enroll in COBRA from the last day of the month. Same recommendation would apply there though as well. Try to get that enrollment done as soon as possible so you don't have a gap in coverage. A couple other things to be thinking about. RSUs, those will vest, depending on the timing of those grants. If you've held those RSUs for at least 6 months from the grant date and you're at retirement, those will vest upon your termination date. So it's how we're reading this, at least right now. Those RSUs would, that income from those, anything that you're eligible to vest that doesn't get canceled, would occur in 2025. So that would be taxable income in 2025. Last 2 points there, unemployment benefits. From what, kind of what we're researching on, at least on the Texas Workforce Commission site, even if this is a layoff, even if you're kind of hoping, raising your hand for an EOI, if it's company-wide kind of reduction in workforce, you could potentially be eligible for unemployment. However, there are still those other stipulations that you would need to satisfy, such as actively searching for jobs, things like that. So if you're entering retirement, it may not be worth the extra work that goes into applying for those unemployment benefits. But definitely, if you are laid off and not planning on retirement, that is something to be thinking about as well on the unemployment side. And then finally, Sam, on the life insurance portability, just wanted you to touch on kind of things to be thinking about there if you have company provided life insurance.
Yeah, sure. So, many of you that have the company provided insurance, it's pretty affordable because it's group coverage, whether it's the executive benefit or it's just the general insurance, it's typically subsidized to a degree. And so if you kind of think about that kind of life insurance, it's going to be, a lot better than what you can go get individually on your own. But when you have the portability and the conversion, if you go from what's called term insurance over to a permanent or a subsidized to an independent permanent, it could be a big cost increase. So that's a great time to actually engage your advisor and say, hey, do I even need this? You may be able to self-insure, you may not. If you do want to get insurance, that's something we can help you with to go and test the market and see what's out there. Additionally to that, long-term care, that's something that often gets overlooked when those are going into retirement, kind of like, hey, I don't really need to think about this until I need it. And that's the wrong time to think about it. So, if you're going to do an insurance review, you might as well check that box, make sure you do a review of long-term care as well.
And just as a reminder, the way that this webinar is structured, there's no outside speakers or videos. So if you have any questions, please submit it to the Q&A. Those will be anonymous questions there just to protect the identity of our participants. So here's a look at the hypothetical severance timeline. So again, just kind of recapping what we talked on the previous slide, if you're notified of a layoff on day one, from what we've kind of determined, research from our conversation with clients, that final severance packet is sent 3 weeks later, and that's when that 60-day clock to sign the consent to release begins. Health benefits would end at the end of that month. And then at day 60, that is going to be your deadline to enroll in the retiree pre-65 healthcare coverage. So that's kind of the end of December is when you would be the deadline to enroll there. The release of that severance package would be due in early January. So if you were to turn that release in early January 1st of 2026, the company's got a 7-day waiting period before then they would then pay out the severance. That severance payment would then go out, I believe, at the end of January. So there is a way where you can then kind of defer at least that income till 2026, when you know that 2025 could potentially be likely a higher income year with RSUs vesting at the end of the year at retirement as well. So there is some benefit in being able to push that severance payout to 2026. And then finally, that day 90, that's the deadline to enroll in COBRA. So this is all, first 90 days, what we've broken down here is more just focused on severance specifically, whether you're retiring or if you're not yet ready to retire and you're going to be looking for another job. But what's also going to be happening within that same 90 days is you'll also be kind of making some decisions on things that are, really over the next 24 months as it relates to your other company benefits. So Sam, maybe kind of touch on what's going to be going on during that initial 90 days and beyond.
Sure. And before I do that, actually, let me take one of the Q&As while we got it. So
Sure.
again, these are all anonymous. If you are retirement eligible and are severed, do you need to sign the general release of liability before you apply for retiree medical, or are those two tasks independent? Now, that's a great question. So never gotten that question before. I think that's a really good question to ask HR. Don't take my response as anything official here, but I would think that you would be able to try to apply for the retiree medical, and if they were to kick it back and say, hey, we really need this form signed, you'll find out pretty quickly. The main thing is you just do not, you don't want to miss that window, as Alex said, for the retiree medical. So, if the general sentiment here is, and the intent is to delay that general release of liability as long as possible, I wouldn't take it to the last day. And Alex, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing to think about there is this also, again, why today we're not getting super specific into all the tax planning considerations is because everyone's situation, very cliche, but everyone's situation is different. If you're at a certain salary grade level, you may have a big key employee pension paying out in 2026. And so maybe you think, well, might as well take that severance in 2025, or if it happens to come in 2025, it doesn't change too much. But I would definitely prioritize enrolling in that retiree healthcare coverage over the timing of the severance payment.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Alex. So yeah, looking ahead the next 24 months, we'll start with the VCIP, the bonus that typically occurs in spring. Yes, you're going to be eligible, if you're VCIP eligible, to receive a prorated amount. We've seen this in 2015 paid out, in 2016. And so, yes, they do it. Seen that, been there, they've done that. And so I think that's really, really great. Number two, the retirement benefits. So kind of breaking down these, big three, as we call them. Obviously, deferred comp is if you're pay grade 19 and above. Not everybody has that. But the savings plan, the 401k plan, you have the ability to tap that once you're severed from service without any early withdrawal penalties if you're 55 and older. It's a nuance in the IRS code. You can also roll that out to an IRA, as most of you probably know. The cash balance of the pension, now that is a very unique decision. So if you're on a legacy pension plan, whether it's Phillips, Conoco, Burlington, there's a lot of different ones. There's different considerations, we'll say. And there's also the need to get that pension paperwork notarized, uploaded, and put back into the system. What we've seen in the past is there's a Social Security offset to that. That's something you probably want to take a look at on the lump sum figure, and you can request a little audit of that. They get it right. But, for your own peace of mind, that might be something you want to take a look at, in the calculation. Again, as a follow-up, we can discuss this one-on-one if you want to reach out to us. The key employee supplemental retirement plan, the timing of that is 6 months after the BCD date, so the benefit commencement date. So the KESRP, KESRP, is basically a overflow of your maximum allowable pension benefit that is accrued over the years. It's above and beyond what the IRS allows into your pension that goes into a non-qualified pension. Now, this may be debunking a big mystery for some of you. Why is this paid out, 6 months after I retire? Why is it all ordinary income? Is there anything I can do? No. Answer is no. So back when I started my career in the late 90s and then early 2000s, there was the big Enron scandal. And what happened was there was a piece of legislation that went out, Sarbanes-Oxley, that made these non-qualified pension plans mandatory wait period because there were insiders that knew the ship was maybe got a couple holes in it and they received large payoffs. So that is why that occurs 6 months later. Now, from a planning perspective, there are some things that your advisor can do to help you, in that next year. Say you receive that in 2026, to offset some of that with, charitable contributions and other various things that Alex's team knows how to do. But just a little piece on that. If it's over $1 million, under $1 million, there's also sometimes a direct deposit versus actually an overnighted check. That may have changed, but we've seen that happen where it's been a physical check versus a direct deposit. Deferred comp schedule. Now, this one is really important to take a look at. There's obviously the ability to defer compensation if you're a pay grade 19 and above. And also there's even some possibilities of shifting that out if it's still allowed, where you can shift it out up to 5 years. And so kind of thinking about the timing of your payments, your income plan, that is something you're going to want to take a look at, before you pull the plug, get your eyes on that and go, okay, what is my schedule? What is all this? What does this all mean for 25, 26, and maybe the next 5 to 10 years? Income replacement and tax planning. I'm going to kick that back to you, Alec.
Yeah, so these are just two other things that you're going to be thinking about a lot. Again, we're not getting into the details of it because everybody's situation and goals is so much different. But you're going to be figuring, okay, how is that income, for my paycheck? How am I going to replace that? What's the way to optimize that? And what are some tax planning things that I can do to kind of help minimize my taxes in certain areas? And so when we kind of zoom out a little bit and look at it kind of over the next from day 90 to year 2, these are just a few of the things that I think most folks in retirement, particularly from ConocoPhillips or energy companies, are going to be going through is, figuring out those first 6 months, managing all those benefits and getting them transitioned, getting the RSUs diversified. I know as of actually September 1st, RSUs transferred from Merrill Lynch to Fidelity. So kind of keep that on your radar as those vestings may occur. You'll have a new Fidelity brokerage account to facilitate that. The employee pension is going to be coming 6 months later. If you have that severance, you're likely going to be pretty good from an income replacement standpoint for the first 12 months. But starting at a year, you're going to be implementing whatever strategy you kind of planned for. Maybe your deferred compensation has kicked in at that point as well. And then by year 2, now you're hopefully in a lower tax bracket, at least in year 2 after the severance of the key employees. So maybe you're starting to do some more sophisticated tax planning strategies before you get to 65 Medicare, before you get to Social Security, before you get to those RMDs kicking in. Those are the times when you can usually be a little bit more flexible from an income tax perspective. So this is just, again, a visual of all the different financial situations and decisions that many folks will be working with. If you're not in the energy industry specifically, you may have some other buckets in here that, your benefits or situation is different. So when we talk about retirement readiness, a lot of people focus on the financial side, which of course is very important. If financially you don't have a good plan in place, all these other, the purpose, the social, the health, those can kind of fall apart. But when you look at the full spectrum of retirement readiness, it's not just the pieces in the financial column. It's the loss of routine. It's the empty calendar syndrome. It's the social connections that you have at work, purpose, kind of a reason to get up in the morning. It's the health side of things, mental and physical. And, we talk with a lot of clients that some have really good plans in place and those kind of issues aren't a problem. They're ready for it. And some tend to struggle a little bit more. But what we try to do, our job, our mission is to take care of the financial side uh, as much as we can to relieve clients of that burden, to focus on all the different changes, legislative changes on tax bill, financial changes, market changes. We're always, we talk about the ability to adapt. As things change, we're always trying to enhance our services and our service model for clients to make sure that they're getting the best of what's out there in the marketplace. And so we take the financial burden. We'll show a little bit of how we can handle that in the demo so that our clients can focus on their purpose, their social, and their health. And then kind of taking, a little bit of a, just kind of some stats there on retirees that deal with, identity crisis or, even depression at some point. I would say that bottom statistic there, 65% of retirees have trouble spending their own savings. This is probably one of the number one issues that we come across with our folks that retire. Um, and one of the ways that we can help model this, visualize this, show this so that clients are able to retire and, live their life to the fullest without having the stress and worry of the financial considerations, which is, very real. To be concerned about that, it can generate a lot of anxiety. And Sam, you mentioned, we've got the QR code up here. You just did a podcast recently about mentally preparing for retirement.
Yeah, I'll just pull out, a couple pieces in case, in case you don't want to listen to it. It's only 13 minutes long, but, if you point up there, you can listen to it on the way home today or over lunch. A couple things, I think one of the things we've seen in the last, for me, 26 years of being in finance is when people retire, it's not just loss of routine, it's the loss of the seeing visually the paycheck. It's funny how when you're working and you're accumulating the nest egg, it's very easy or easier to go through the market fluctuations of your portfolio because you have time to recover. You're still working. You're still adding to the snowball, so to speak. But as soon as retirement happens and you're faced with all those things that were on the other slide, if you don't have an income plan that you really understand that's actually tangible, where you know exactly how you're getting your money off your portfolio or Social Security and all the different buckets, and you don't see it and you can't touch it and feel it, it's not real. And so I've seen folks that didn't have a good income plan have a lot higher anxiety, not only about their portfolio, but have that just kind of reverberate in their entire life. They start focusing more on finances in retirement than they do the things you're supposed to be doing, which is enjoying your life. And so that is something that we do take very seriously, is developing that income plan that our clients are comfortable with as they go into the space. Now, for this specific topic of ConocoPhillips, it's a little bit different. The first 2 years, you might be very flush with income. If you have a KSRP, you've got the severance payment, what do you do with it? That's something to also tackle, right? Mm-hmm. But beyond that, you've got to have visibility into what it looks like, how it's modeled, and something you're comfortable with. And, the people that I think retire well lay this foundation so then they can go into retirement going, yeah, I get it, and do the things you want to do.
Yeah. And I'm going to be very quick with this eMoney demo. I know we're coming up on time. This is just one of the tools that we utilize to help visualize, to help model scenarios, model decisions, illustrate cash flow plans for our clients that are working and at retirement. So if your question is, okay, hey, this all looks good, I've got some questions. Well, how do I kind of determine if I'm ready? How do I kind of model out what my retirement cash flow plan would look like? So I'm going to share my screen here real quick. 1 second. So this is just a sample client. This is the overview on the eMoney portal, Joe and Joanna Energy. It'd be very easy for us to simply go in, build out your facts, We would essentially build your family information. We would build out your balance sheet, living, breathing balance sheet, as we call it, for our clients, assets, liabilities, build out your cash flow statement. So what's your social security income? Do you have any annuities? What's your KESRP income going to look like? Expenses. Where's the money, where's the money going? How is it being spent? Building out all the expenses. Sometimes for clients, it's $10,000 a year for travel, for a big vacation for the first 10 years of retirement, so getting very specific and detailed onto that, and then taking that information over to the decision center where we can then model out, all these different scenarios. Let me turn these buttons all off here. So we can kind of look at a base case for a client. Okay, when we get to retirement, they're getting a bump there in their assets because that pension is vesting, that key employee is hitting. Well, what if we're, kind of modeling a severance scenario for this client? Now they're retiring, 4 or 5 years sooner than they had projected. Well, obviously there's going to be a loss in future value as they're not working, but ultimately still determining what's that probability of success? Can they still be successful with what they want to do with that scenario? So you can see this client here, we're at 79% right now, just changing that one variable. So maybe we need to do some other things with them to increase the probability of success. And then from here, we can kind of model out the different sources of cash flow throughout their entire lifespan. So there's a lot more detail to this. I know we're short on time here, so I wanted to just show that from a high level. If you have questions, so I'm going to pull the presentation back up here for us.
Yeah, just a reminder, there's a Q&A ribbon up there, and if you have other questions you want to ask, please do. And if not, you can always, get back to us later as well.
And so the final thing, if you have any questions that you didn't get addressed here, please, reach out to myself or Sam. My email is alec@crestmontpw.com. You can also scan this QR code here. It'll take you to our contact us page where you can just send an email with some questions to maybe set up a quick conversation. Share some information about your current financial situation. And if you want to take the step of kind of doing your own retirement readiness checklist, we can gather some information and put that together with you on eMoney.
Yeah, thank you for everybody attending. I just want to leave a little bit of time for any potential Q&A here at the end, and we can hang on for a few minutes. Just, one thing that I'll mention, because we wanted this to be very informative, hopefully it has been, but to give you a little bit more information on Crestmont, as Alec mentioned, we have a Houston office at One Riverway in Houston. We also have an office here in Bernie, Texas. Have clients really all over the United States that leave Texas, believe it or not, to retire elsewhere, and our software that we have there actually has state-specific tax law. So those of you that are maybe going to the mountains or the beach, that's something we can definitely handle. We've got a team of specialists. We take a team approach. It's not a Alec client or a Sam client. We all have Crestmont clients. We manage a little over 320 million in assets on the Schwab platform. So we are independent, meaning that we don't have any products. We're a fiduciary, and we love doing this. We absolutely love helping people. And I would say that those of you that are maybe anxious about this situation, we understand. It's or maybe you're excited. Maybe you're ready to go. The EOI, like, couldn't wait for it. But either way, it's change, and with change can come anxiety. With change can come with opportunity. So just think about the things you want to do. I think that's the number one thing. What do you want to do next? What is the next chapter? And if we can help in any way, that's where our passion and purpose is. We love helping people. So let us know, and I'm going to stay on for a few more minutes on Q&A, and you can reach us at here at this QR code if you like.
Thank you very much for attending. We'll be hosting another one of these webinars next week, so Please feel free to share with your colleagues if you found this helpful. And we plan on doing a couple more of these sessions this fall. So if there's any other specific topics that you think would be beneficial, please feel free to share with us.
I'll probably hang on for about 2 or 3 more minutes, and then we'll call it a wrap.
All right. Thank y'all.
And Anonymous, thank you for taking the time to run this webinar today. No, thank you for attending. And if you have people that want to join it next Friday, please share the link. We'll have it posted. Those of you that are still on, I hope you like my running shirt. This was brought to you by Annie, who's moderating the chat, because I run very early in the morning. Right, I don't see any more Q&A, so we're going to go ahead and call that a wrap. Thank you, guys. See you all soon.